In today's video, I'm going to talk about how a child who was spoiled throughout their childhood can become a cold and cruel murderer. A child who developed abnormal behavior, believing everything should go their way. If not, there would be consequences. A child who instilled fear even in their own mother and did not respect any rules imposed. This is the case of Derek Lietz, and now you will learn all the details about him. Derek Campos Lietz was born on November 13, 1991. At the time of the events, he was a 20-year-old young man living with his mother in Wisconsin, United States. When Derek was born, his mother, Shelley, was only 19 years old and still in college. Shelley had no plans to have a child at that moment, and she knew life wouldn't be easy from then on, especially since the man who got her pregnant wanted nothing to do with the baby, leaving her to be a single mother. The following months were filled with anxiety and nervousness for Shelley, as she had no idea how she would support the child she was expecting. However, when Derek was born, she held him in her arms, looked at him, and felt a sense of peace. She said that from that moment on, she would do everything to ensure her son had a good life. Shelley faced many challenges as a mother, but she always tried to do her best. When Derek was just 7 weeks old, he became ill and started crying nonstop. After taking him to the hospital, doctors found that he had respiratory issues caused by severe pneumonia. His condition was critical, and because of that, he had to be urgently airlifted to a specialized hospital in Duluth, Minnesota. The flight took over 2 hours, which left Shelley extremely anxious. Upon arriving at the hospital, Derek was immediately admitted, and the doctor in charge told Shelley that he couldn't guarantee her son would survive because his condition was extremely serious. At that moment, Shelley began to pray and told herself that if her son survived, she would make him the happiest boy in the world. As you may already know, Derek survived, and after this great scare, Shelley became an extremely protective and affectionate mother. According to people close to her, Shelley gave Derek almost everything he asked for and indulged all of his wishes. This obviously spoiled him, and as we know, this usually doesn't end well. Derek's childhood was described as normal, but as he grew, he began to show abnormal behavior. He became an aggressive child who wouldn't accept no as an answer. On one occasion, Shelley was with Derek in a supermarket, and as they passed the toy section, the boy asked her for a toy he liked. However, that day Shelley was counting her money and told her son that she couldn't buy the toy, but promised they would come back another day to get it. Upon hearing this, Derek became furious. He then grabbed the toy he wanted and broke it. Next, he picked up another toy identical to the one he had broken and told his mother that if she didn't buy it, he would break that one too. Shelley ended up giving in to her son's demand and later said she had never seen Derek like that, with eyes full of hatred. As the years went by, Derek continued to display abnormal behavior. Unlike other children, when he ate, he didn't like to touch his food, not even when it was pizza, fries, or a sandwich. He would only eat with a fork and knife. He also didn't like to play with other children, and on some occasions, he even assaulted kids who tried to approach him to play. Even the way he played with his toys was unusual. Derek would line up all his toys in front of him in a very organized manner. Then he would step back a few meters and observe them for a while. He would only touch them again to put them away. Derek also didn't interact much with other adults besides his mother. On one occasion, a friend of Shelley's visited her at home, and she tried to talk to Derek, but the boy just ignored her with an annoyed look on his face. This same friend had brought her son, a boy almost the same age as Derek. The boy tried to play with Derek, but Derek didn't want to play with him. When the boy grabbed one of the toys that were lined up, Derek pushed him and then started hitting him. Shelley and her friend saw the scene and quickly restrained Derek, who even tried to bite his own mother. A few years later, when Derek was around 7 or 8 years old, Shelley met a man named Robert, with whom she started a relationship. One day, Robert went to Shelley's house to meet Derek, and the meeting between the two was described as very strange. Robert was known for being a playful man, and he tried to play with Derek, but the boy completely ignored him. Although at that moment Robert realized that Derek wasn't a normal child, he still kept trying to interact with him. At one point, Robert started playing with the boy's hair, looking at his scalp as if he were searching for something. When Shelley saw this, she questioned Robert about what he was doing, and Robert replied with a smile that he was just looking for the number 666. Shelley didn't fully understand and was a bit confused, so Robert told her to relax because he was just joking. Later on, Shelley understood what Robert was referring to. The relationship between Robert and Shelley developed, and eventually they decided to get married. After they married, they moved in together, and Robert started taking care of Derek as if he were his own son. Before that, Shelley had not set any limits for her son, and Derek basically did whatever he wanted. Robert knew that this was extremely harmful for a child, and since he had become part of the family, he thought it would be better to intervene. Robert began setting limits and establishing rules for Derek, something the boy was not at all accustomed to. On the first Christmas they spent together, Robert woke up early, arranged the presents under the tree, made a big breakfast, and waited for Shelley and Derek to wake up so they could enjoy everything he had prepared. However, as soon as Shelley and Derek woke up, Derek ran straight to the tree to open his Christmas presents. Shelley had promised her son that she would give him a video game, so Derek could hardly wait to enjoy this gift. But now the house had rules, and Robert told Derek that he could only open the presents if he had breakfast. Robert wanted that Christmas to be special, as it was the first Christmas he, Shelley, and Derek spent together. He wanted everyone to sit at the table and enjoy the big breakfast he had prepared, talking, as families usually do. Obviously, Derek didn't accept this and told Robert that he wasn't hungry and wanted to open the presents first. Robert stood firm and said that wouldn't be possible, and if Derek didn't eat breakfast, he wouldn't be allowed to open any presents that day. This was the kind of behavior Shelley had never shown. She didn't intervene, just watched. She knew that what Robert was doing was the best for Derek's upbringing. Derek sat at the table but just stared at the food and didn't eat anything. Robert continued to tell the boy that he could only open the presents if he ate. A few minutes later, Robert and Shelley finished eating, but Derek didn't touch his plate. The two got up from the table and started cleaning up, leaving only Derek's plate. Hours went by and night came, with Derek still sitting there not eating and not opening the presents. Seeing that her son wasn't going to eat anything, Shelley told him to go to bed. The next day, when Robert left early for work, Shelley, taking advantage of the fact that her husband wasn't home, decided to give in to her son's tantrum and gave him the present she had bought for him. As soon as Derek opened the gift, he saw it was a video game, but he didn't thank her, not even showing any reaction. Instead of playing and enjoying his gift, he simply picked it up, climbed onto the couch, and threw it with all his strength, breaking the device. After that, Derek slowly walked back to his room, as if he wasn't at all concerned about any possible consequences. Shelley was very shaken and began to cry. When she calmed down, she took the device, put it back in the box, and went back to the store where she had bought it. She told one of the employees that there had been a problem during the transport, and the device wasn't working. That way, Shelley got a new video game, and when she returned home, she gave it to Derek, who didn't break it this time. Robert never knew about this. Some people who followed the case said that Shelley did this because she loved her son, but also because she was very afraid of him. When Derek became a teenager, his behavior worsened, and things at the family home became increasingly unbearable. Derek only wanted to stay locked in his room, and every time Robert tried to reach out to him, Derek would argue, shout, and curse. The two never physically fought, but the arguments were so intense that it seemed like things could get out of control at any moment. Shelley was completely lost in all of this. She watched each argument and felt powerless. Shelley was very sad about everything. She loved both her son and her husband, and she felt that at any moment this would lead to the end of the family. At first, Shelley didn't intervene, but later she started trying to calm things down, though most of the time she sided with Derek, even when he was completely wrong. This caused her marriage with Robert to deteriorate, until it reached a point where Robert couldn't take it anymore. He asked for a divorce and left the house. As time went by, Derek's behavior didn't change. He didn't make friends, didn't like interacting with anyone, and just wanted to stay home in his room. Shelley then decided to take her son to a psychologist to see if the professional could help in any way. The psychologist who evaluated Derek concluded that he was suffering from depression and prescribed a treatment that Derek followed for a short period of time. In 2009, just before Derek turned 18, he met a girl named Macy, who was 16 at the time. Macy was very different from Derek. She was extroverted, lively, had many friends, loved going out. She was the complete opposite of him. Still, the two got along well and began dating. Derek even changed his behavior after he started dating Macy. He began to smile, was affectionate with his girlfriend, became more communicative, and even started following some rules at home. He even told Macy that he loved her, something he had never said to his mother. Every time Shelley told her son that she loved him, he would just remain silent and not respond. Shelley was very happy about her son's relationship. To her, Macy completed Derek, filling what was missing in him. Shelley believed that her son would finally act like a normal person and live a normal life, but she was completely mistaken. In the first year of their relationship, Derek told his mother that Macy was pregnant. Shelley was very happy with the news, even though the couple was very young and had no structure to raise a child. She even suggested to her son that Macy move in with them. At that time, neither Derek nor Macy had finished high school yet. They also didn't have jobs. As a result, Macy accepted her mother-in-law's invitation and moved in with Derek. At first, everything went well. The family seemed very united, and they even adopted a Labrador dog named Lucy. The following year, in 2010, Derek graduated from high school, and his son with Macy was born. They named the boy Gabriel, who was born healthy and was warmly welcomed by the family. Macy still had to complete her last year of high school, and when she returned to school after having the baby, Derek took care of their son most of the time. Derek was considered a great father. He was attentive, affectionate, and very loving with Gabriel. Derek cooked, played with the baby, changed diapers, and did everything without complaining, which was hard to believe given his behavior and personality throughout his life. However, shortly before the child turned 1, Derek began slowly reverting to his old self. He started imposing rules in the house for almost everything, and everyone had to obey. This included cleanliness, organization, meal times, TV time, and many other things. Everything had to be done as Derek ordered. The house curtains always had to be closed. When Shelley woke up earlier than him, she would go to the living room, open the curtains to let light in, but as soon as Derek woke up, he would go and close them again. In addition, Derek started to become frustrated with everything and would argue about anything. He no longer allowed his son to play in the backyard, so the child could only play inside the house. Derek also made a sort of menu with all the types of meals he liked the most, and his mother had to prepare them whenever he chose, regardless of the day or time. He was the one who controlled the grocery shopping, even though he didn't work to help. After graduating high school, Macy got a job, and the only time Derek allowed her to leave the house was to go to work. She had a set time to leave and a set time to return. Derek timed her schedule based on the route she had to take from home to work and from work to home. He knew exactly what time she left work and when she should arrive home. If Macy was even a minute late, Derek would argue with her when she got home. Shelley tried to calm things down when this happened, but Derek told her not to interfere. Due to all of this, Shelley, who had been happy about her son's improved behavior, started to feel depressed when she realized he was getting worse. Shelley turned to alcohol for solace, something she had struggled with in the past. She gave into the addiction again in an attempt to feel better and escape her reality. At that time, Derek was 19, and he was no longer satisfied with just imposing his will. He started saying disturbing things that left everyone uneasy. One night, Shelley went to the kitchen to get some water from the fridge and found Derek sitting at the table cleaning an AK-47 rifle. Shelley had no idea how Derek had gotten the gun, and she was so scared that she froze and didn't know how to react. When Shelley turned her back and started walking toward another room in the house, Derek pointed the gun at her and asked if she was afraid of him. Shelley stood still, unable to answer. She then went to her room, and after that incident, Shelley spent most of her time locked in her room drinking. Out of fear of her own son, she began avoiding him, and her room became her refuge. She only left for work, and whenever she encountered Derek, she spoke just enough to avoid upsetting him. Derek noticed that his mother started spending more time in her room and avoiding him. From time to time, he would go to her room and knock on the door to ask questions about something in the house. It was just a way to show that he was there, that he was around, almost as if he was asserting some dominance. One time, Shelley got sick and needed to be hospitalized for surgery to remove her gallbladder. When she returned home, she noticed that Lucy, the family dog, was missing. She asked Derek where Lucy was, and Derek said she had run into the street and was hit by a car. Shelley, terrified, asked where the dog was now, and Derek replied that she had died and that he had gotten rid of her body. The problem was that Lucy didn't have a habit of running into the street, as Derek claimed. Shelley knew her son was lying and probably had something to do with the dog's disappearance, but she was too scared to confront him and pretended to believe his story. Around this time, Derek began to abuse Macy, his girlfriend. This was the last straw for Macy, who had already had enough of the life she was living with Derek. The young woman decided it was time to leave. On her 18th birthday, Macy took advantage of the fact that Derek wasn't home, packed all of her belongings, and left. She decided to leave Gabriel, their son, behind because she believed that if she took the boy, Derek would go to great lengths to find him and would likely do something harmful to her out of revenge. Macy had already talked to Shelley, who supported her decision. When Derek came home and Shelley told him that Macy had left, he simply sat down and remained silent, showing no emotion. Shelley expected a completely different reaction, but Derek just stayed still, staring at her. Then he stood up, lowered his head, and went to his room. On September 7th, 2012, Shelley was leaving for work when she found Derek in the living room with all the curtains closed, pacing back and forth. Derek was talking to himself and kept repeating the same phrase over and over. Gabriel will never call another man dad. Shelley asked her son what was going on, but Derek ignored her and kept repeating the phrase. Noticing she was going to be late for work, Shelley decided to leave Derek as he was and went to work. At that time, Shelley had stopped drinking and was attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. She was experiencing positive changes in her life and had improved significantly. The next day, September 8th, Shelley woke up early as usual and went to work. After work, she went to another meeting she attended at Alcoholics Anonymous. When the meeting ended, Shelley said goodbye to the people at the meeting and headed back home. As Shelley approached her house, she saw Macy's car in the driveway and the front door of the house was open. At first, Shelley thought Macy had come by to visit her son, but when she entered the house, she was struck by the eerie silence that filled the place. Inside the house, specifically in the living room, Shelley found what appeared to be bloodstains. She followed these stains, which led her to the bathroom. The bathroom door was locked, but Shelley could see blood seeping under the door. At that moment, she feared that Derek had taken his own life or done something to his own son. But when she opened the bathroom door, she found Macy in the bathtub with a deep wound in her neck. Desperate, Shelley began searching the house for her grandson while calling the police. But there was no sign of the child, nor of Derek. The police arrived quickly at the house, and when they entered the bathroom, they saw that there was nothing more they could do. Macy was already dead. All Shelley could do in that moment was cry in despair, for if Derek was capable of doing that to Macy, he could just as easily do the same to his own son. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Shelley was taken to the police station, where the officers tried to calm her down and asked if she knew where Derek might be. Shelley said she had no idea, as Derek wasn't one to go out much, so he didn't have any special place he would go to in a situation like this.
I'm scared for the baby.
Why is that?
I don't know where he is. I've never not known where he is. Well, it's like, what does it matter what my birthday was or what I used to do for a job?
Since Derek was the prime suspect in the crime and the disappearance of his son, the detectives issued an Amber Alert. The following morning, around 5 a.m., Derek checked into a hotel a few miles from his home. He was with Gabriel, his son, and appeared completely unconcerned. Due to the Amber Alert, the hotel clerk recognized Derek, but the clerk was smart and pretended to be unaware of anything, serving Derek as usual. When Derek went to his room with his son, the clerk called the police and made the report. The police arrived a few minutes later, arrested Derek, who did not resist, and managed to rescue Gabriel. The child was fine and had no injuries. Derek was still wearing the same clothes he had on when the crime was committed. There was even blood from Macy on his shoes, and the bloodstains found in the house were consistent with the prints from those same shoes. This was a major piece of evidence against him. In the car Derek used to flee, which belonged to his mother, the police found the weapon used in the crime, a kitchen knife. Later, he was taken in for questioning and given the right to make a call to his mother. On the call, Derek apologizes, saying he never wanted things to end this way. Shelley then tells him she loves him, and Derek replies that he loves her too. It was the first time in his life that Derek told his mother he loved her.
Hey, Mother, it's me. I'm sorry about this whole thing. I didn't mean for anything to happen like this. I'm really sorry. All I can say is I'm still just really sorry about the whole situation. There's nothing I can do about it now. I'd do anything to go back in time, but it's not how life works. I love you too. Please take good care of my baby.
From the moment Derek was arrested, Shelley considered helping him. She didn't want her son to spend the rest of his life in prison, so she was willing to testify in his favor in court. However, Derek never went to trial, as he accepted a plea deal from the prosecution in which he pleaded guilty to the crime against Macy. As a result, in 2012, Derek Lietz was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 40 years of his sentence. Macy's funeral took place a few days after her death, in a ceremony full of sadness and anger. After everything that happened, Shelley no longer wanted to live in her house due to the terrible memories, so she decided to move. According to sources, she was granted custody of her grandson and now lives in a secluded, isolated place where people don't know her story. In a statement, Shelley said that she raises her grandson in a completely different way from how she raised Derek, as she doesn't want her grandson to be like his father. She also said that she feels guilty for what happened to Macy and that she will do everything in her power to ensure that Gabriel's story is completely different. I couldn't find information on whether Shelley takes her grandson to visit his father in prison, but what is known is that Derek is in a maximum security prison in the state of Wisconsin and will likely only leave there when he is elderly.